Today's episode of Leverage is all about why it is so important to prep your home before you list, and that you really just can't. I don't think you ever could, even during COVID, to be quite honest, stick a sign on the lawn and say, I'm ready to sell and just rake in the money and get top dollar. It's all about prep. As I always say, you wear your prom dress on prom night, you don't go in your pajamas. And so it's all about making sure that you look your best and put your best foot forward. And so I'm thrilled to have Michael Cappa from Altona Painting here to talk about not only his experience in just the painting part. I think we'll get into some of the particulars, about hey, my walls look really great, but I only painted them 30 years ago. To also what Michael's seen and what he believes really also gets your biggest bang for your buck. So welcome, Michael.
Hey Rachel, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You are a veteran of the podcast circuit, so it's great to have you on. And this is a really, important topic, like close to my business heart per se. Not to be dramatic about it, but I really do believe, and it's so interesting to me, no matter how many years I do this, it's still a hard conversation when I walk into clients' houses and they'll say to me like, what do I need to get done? Please walk through. And there are some clients who are like, we have to paint. We know we have to do these little repairs. And then there are others like, but why do I have to paint? Like I just painted, but the paint's brown. Or, I don't have anything wrong with brown, but like dark colors or, like that type of thing. So maybe tell the audience a little bit about yourself. We'll obviously put all the information about you in the show notes if anybody is looking to just paint their house regardless or get some work done. But yeah, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about myself. I'm the owner of Altona Painting and we do residential and commercial painting. I've been doing the trade for 13 years and running my business for 8. And it's really in the last few years that we've really dialed in working with a lot more agents and brokerages, getting houses ready for sale. And we do about 100 to 150 projects per year. So, in the 8 years that I've been in business, even before I started working with agents very regularly, I still had some clients here and there that were painting in preparation for getting the house ready for sale. So we have done, like to say the least, we've done hundreds of buy and sell projects where people move in and they want to personalize it, or they're selling and they want to add some value. So you could say we know a thing or two about adding value to a house.
No kidding.
Having been the preferred vendor at several brokerages now and working alongside agents, we've really seen the full gamut from just like the basic, hey, here's a bedroom. The rest of the house looks great, but this bedroom, we got to neutralize this teal or this Barbie pink, all the way to, oh my goodness, the whole house is in shambles. Someone smoked here. There's wallpaper everywhere. Everything's done in oil paint, like just triple, quadruple whammy of like getting the house ready for sale. So we've done anything and everything to get houses ready for sale.
And I think you just like touched on so many things. Oh my God, I'm like nodding. I'm like, yep, saw that. I've seen the Barbie room. Yep, I've been in the house that, someone was smoking in, all of that. Um, so, this is really like basic stuff to us, but I think the average person out there isn't totally aware of why these things are so important. And listen, I've had a client, like I'm not making this up, who I showed a property to. It was a condo. And, always like, so what did we think? I like to play this game of like 1 out of 10, like, knowing that we'll never get a 10, but we're looking for like an 8.5, and there's no perfect house. And someone said to me, no, you know what? I didn't really love it. And I was like, okay, like, let's talk about why. And they were like, the colors of the wall, like the paint, I like, it's not for me. And like, for us, we're like, okay, but we can change that, right? Like we're not talking about like the kitchen's too small or, I don't like the exposure or it's too low a floor. Like to them, this paint. And so what I think people need to understand is that a lot of people, I would even go as far as to say the majority of people cannot see past or envision themselves living in a property if there's too much going on. And so why do we stage? Why do we do, why do we paint? Why do we, like you said, perfect word, neutralize? You could also say depersonalize, because a Barbie pink is very personal. And I get it. You had a little girl, you see the little girl's room in pink, you see the little blue room for the boys, whatever it is. But if those people don't have children, or they're not the people that would paint their rooms those colors, it's going to turn them off. I would also say, and you are someone who, understands getting a house ready, that's if you get them to the house. How a house is picked, like is photographed, the clutter, the color, if it's like though, that's the sexy that brings people in, right? So you need to make sure that you're showing an aspirational magazine lifestyle kind of look, and then people are like, oh my God, I want to go there, right?
Oh yeah, it's like, well, you know that Nickelback song Photograph, when the opening line of the song, look at this photograph. Well, if
You're
the
the first
photograph
person to sing on the podcast. I love it.
well, yeah, you can see the music studio in the background here, so it's in my
Very
blood.
cool. There you go. I have an aspiring singer too. Yep.
So if people are looking at the MLS or Zillow or Realtor.ca and the photos of the house are showing that it's very dated and needs work, they're not even going to want to go look at it in person. So for, as they say, first impressions are everything. You do not get a second chance at a good first impression, especially when it doesn't matter what market cycle it is, whether it's buyers, sellers, or balanced. The bottom line is if the house looks good, you're going to attract the right buyer and you're going to attract the right people that you want to come look at the house. And if the to your point earlier, not everyone's a visionary and can see like this house that I live in here with my folks 8 years ago. I found it on the online, and when we went to look at it, we could see the potential of like, okay, like obviously there's work to do here, but it's got good bones, it's got good layout. And just last year and this year, like 7, 8 years later, my parents renovated it to their vision. But not everyone can see that with a listing. They just
No,
people want turnkey and move in ready.
no, and it's not, listen, it's not about intelligence. It's not about, it's just, it's a skill, or it's like you really like
Convenience.
houses, or like I like to tell the story of my husband when we were looking for a very first cottage, and the cottage was a rental. Okay, so if anyone's ever been in a house or a condo that's a rental, it never shows as well. Again, because it's got people's stuff all over the place. Most people don't have, they don't buy, forever furniture or stuff, for a place that they're renting. And anyway, it was like shabby. We'll just say it was shabby. And and my husband walked in and he looked around, and in my head I was like, I wouldn't sit down on this furniture, let alone, right? Like, but I was like, I loved the view. It was a great lot. I could see, the potential in it as our first place. It was small, and it was small, okay? And my husband turns around. I said, what do you think? And he goes, I don't like it. It doesn't have any closets. Closets? Who the hell needs closets? I go, it's our cottage. We're not even living here. But again, this isn't about the closets. It was like a little kid saying he's a headache, but he really has a stomach ache. It wasn't the closets. He was just like, this place looks so horrible. It doesn't even have closets, right? Like it was, so, you want to make sure that you're taking out all of the things that you can control that a buyer would say, would be a reason not to buy your house. And especially, guys, especially in this market right now, I will tell you what I'm seeing with buyers. First of all, there's no urgency. So even if you make your house look the best it possibly can, and you're still the best house on the streets, they're not running. No one's running. No one is running. There may be a slow walk, but they're not
Hmm.
running. We were just talking, right, about how hot it was this week and no one was really doing anything, and like the littlest thing can throw, like weather, it's raining. I don't need to go. There'll be another house. Okay. So if you have a different color of paint in every single room in your house, I guarantee you, you won't get showings. Like unless you're really like a fire sale, you won't get showings. Because what I find is, buyers come in with this mentality of money's more expensive than it has been since COVID. By the way, it's not more expensive than it ever has been, but they're still in COVID mindset. Okay, so money's more expensive. Prices are down, but not down enough that your mortgage payments are less. Okay, so you're still paying more for the same house for less price. And so they want more. Like they really want more. And so if they're like, I have to now paint this house, which, as you know, we'll talk about costs, is not cheap. Paint's not. There's labor, paint's expensive, all of that. Prepping the walls. They're just going to look at it as a debit. Okay, you're asking $1 million just to, okay, so we're going to take money off. And it's not 10,000. They're not putting like, how much they'll say, plus my time, but I do it like times three. And now all of a sudden your just cost you $50,000 off your asking price.
Hmm.
So you've seen success stories, like, what have you seen? Like, have you seen anything that you can speak to about, properties that you've done, that you've seen a great sale on or?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you a few examples of projects we've done in the last few years, even with the different market cycles. So we did one in 2023 when I know the market was still like it was starting to come down, but it was still pretty high and active. More sellers market at that time, and the one townhome, or it was a semi-detached that we did, and we did the front foyer and two bedrooms and like the upper loft. And again, same thing, great bones, good layout, good size to the house, but all the rooms we painted just they either had wallpaper or they were like a mid-tone taupe, mid-tone brown, and just felt lived in. And but when we were done with them, they felt bright, they felt clean, they felt bigger, they felt move-in ready. And that house went for 50 grand over asking.
Great.
And yeah, so usually it's the painting and the staging, that like dynamic duo, they go hand in hand. You can't, it's like peanut butter and chocolate. You can't have one without the other.
I thought you were gonna say peanut butter and jelly, but I like that. Peanut butter and chocolate. I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah.
PB&J as well.
It's true. And I would preface to say to people, like I always say to clients when I meet them, like when they sell their house, are we selling as is? Like, do you just not want to put any money into it and you're just going to get what market value it is? Or do you want to maximize based on, right? So this is about investing in the property to get the most money. And there you go. These people sold 50% over what they had expected. What market, I think that's 50,000 over what they had listed for and hoped that they would get, right? So it's excellent.
Yeah, and the other example I want to give you, just in the more like current market, right before Christmas of 25, we painted this townhome on the Danforth in Toronto. And the house went through probate for a few months after we were done, but it finally just sold last month. And the house got eight eight offers, and it went 275,000 over asking.
Good for
And
them.
in this market, like that's, hey, it's still happening, right? And the more you set yourself up for success, the more likely you are to be a success story.
For sure. Well, I mean, I always say the East End defies all logic of any market. It's crazy. But a townhome are very hard to sell. I find them very tricky. There's not a lot of demand for them. So that really speaks to obviously the transformation that you did. So probate is when someone passes away and the state has to go through probate.
That's right.
So you can usually when you hear estate sale, it means, that there was an older person living there, obviously not entertaining or upkeeping like someone would. They're very happy to enjoy their home just the way it was. And so it tends to need the money. Now, interestingly enough, I find, and I do a lot of estate sales, usually people are just like, you know what, we'll just sell it as is. But these people chose to put money into it and they reap the rewards.
Yeah, and actually, I want to speak to what would have been the impact if they didn't paint or stage, because so we painted the main level and most of the upper level, and eh, what we dealt with was some water damage, some failed paint and drywall plaster, and the colors on the walls were either like an off green, off yellow, like very dated, or like super bright teal. And then
Oh wow.
the ceilings weren't even white. The ceilings were like off yellow, like close to my poster there. So you had
Right.
this
Older.
big,
Yeah.
beautiful home with like high ceilings and so much potential. And I think if they didn't do anything, first of all, I don't even know if they would have. Well, they probably would have sold just given the location, but they wouldn't have got the result they got because the work that we did along with the staging, like it really maximized that transaction. And if they didn't do anything, they wouldn't have got the results they got.
No, and there is research to show in staging. It's interesting. Someone should do it about the painting as well. Maybe this is your chance, but there's research of people, who stage versus don't stage. And by the way, I would also say bad staging, just like bad paint jobs, I can actually do a worse have a worse effect than not. I have seen some pretty bad stuff, but if you paint it properly and again, I'd love to actually ask you before we go on, all over the place, but so back in COVID days when, everything was white and pot lights and black fixtures and this I wouldn't say sterile. Like I know a lot of clients will push back and go, they feel so sterile. I said, it's not that it's sterile, although I can see how if someone doesn't like white walls, that they would feel that way, but it's more of, a blank canvas for a stager to come in, right? Because then they can't, oh, well, this is color of the walls. I have to now choose different artwork or different furniture. But I have seen a shift and that white wall, like massive pot lights, like not massive, but like a ton of them, like just that overexposed look. There's a lot of, I don't want to say flips because no one does flips anymore, but renovations of that kind of listings on the market are just sitting. People don't want them anymore. So curious to hear what you're using when, like, color wise, palette wise, when doing people's homes now.
Great question. So I think if you're painting to love it and enjoy it, sure, doing white or off-white makes sense in that case. Like my studio, my basement apartment here, I wanted it white because I wanted black trim and doors and I wanted to hang up all my studio artwork and all my sound pads. So it looks like it makes sense. The color scheme makes sense in here because that's what I wanted. But if I was painting this to sell it, um, the best colors to use are neutral tones, so it could be gray or grayish, kind of earthy tones, because those ones, there's two major pros with doing the neutral tones. Number one is a lot of the time, like I want to say 80 or 90% of the time, a light gray or a grayish will cover most existing colors in two coats.
Ooh,
And
this is
from
a good topic. Yeah, yeah, for
yeah, and
sure.
from a cost perspective, like labor and material used, I when you're changing color, you always go two coats. This one coat nonsense, like that's a pipe dream. It's very rare that you get away with one coat in the world of painting, so don't let the charlatan marketers fool you on that one.
Yeah, if you've got your color paint and it needs a touch up, first of all, don't we'll talk about touch ups also, but like
We'll talk
if
about
you
that,
can
yeah.
get away with like just one coat, over the existing color, but I know a
That
lot
you
of
can do.
people like they've got a dark color and I've said, listen, we need to lighten this up and I want to go like simply white, right? Like a simply white has like a kind of a warmish hue. It's not like a decorator's white or a and painters have said to me, "Oh no." They're like, you would have to prime, and then we're talking three coats, and then you're talking about a totally different price point, right? Than
It is,
saying
yeah.
to a gray white. So when you say gray, let's also like we're not talking gray like this. We're talking a light gray that you can like it's a shade. It's a shade to the white. It's a gray shade to the white. Or are you talking gray? Do you have a color? Throw out a color. Like some people who care.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so two really good examples. There's one from Dulux called Fog, FOG. Color code is DLX 1010-2. So anyone wants to go look that up.
I
And
love it.
then
You heard it
there's
here
another
first, folks.
and then there's another one from Benjamin Moore called White Wisp, and that color code is OC54. Um, those two are like my go-to light grays because they're the fog has a hint of green in it, but mostly gray, and then the White Wisp is like truly gray. And you would go with something like that because they're usually the color decks, whatever paint company they're from, they have like 6 or 7 colors down the palette when you're like looking through the color deck. So if they have the colors ordered in how light from light
Light
to
to dark.
dark,
Yeah.
then for the objective of brightening the house, but also covering in 2 coats, ideally you want to go with a color that's like 2 or 3 down the palette, because one down the palette's probably too light, which is going to be into priming territory. Further than 3 down the palette, you're starting to get too dark. So if you hit that sweet spot of like 2 or 3 down the palette, you're going to get a color that'll brighten up the room, but also cover in 2 coats.
So I can't stress this enough. If you are thinking about selling your home, this is when you bring the realtor in who you know and you trust. And this is not a plug for me. This is not, this is a plug for Michael. How's that? But, and I would, by the way, I wouldn't even say, that you would bring, I've been using the same painter forever and he knows paint, whatever. Okay, that's great. But there is an art to picking paint and picking colors to sell a house. They will know oil versus eggshell versus all of that. They'll understand the technique, but now selling a house is another story. So I have been brought into a property where I get referred a client and they're like, "Oh no, don't worry. We just like literally I'll be like, "Oh, have you considered painting?" Because there's like dark colors. They're like, "Oh, we already painted because we knew we were selling." And I want to weep because if they had called me, I would have chosen something that would have obviously helped their resale value. It would have allowed their house to look better. And again, this is like you said, paint to love it. Paint whatever color you want. I had clients who called me the other day and said, "We're doing a massive renovation. We want your opinion on it." And I gave them a few things. And one of those, like, "I'd love to see a double sink here, right?" And they were like, "We don't know if we can do it." And I said, "How long are you going to be at the house?" They're like, 20 years. I go, "Then don't even ask me. In 20 years, you'll worry about it." Same thing. If you want to paint for staying, paint every color, like yellow for all I care. But if you are going to, please bring in your realtor who, if they've been doing this a long time and are seasoned, will have a painter, for example, like Michael, who can come in. I will already have my opinions, but I'm not a painter. So I'm going to now defer to you and say, "Okay, Michael, I want to see a lighter shade." And you're going to say, "Great." I'm like, what else can we go? So you said gray. What else, like on the color scheme of the color wheel, would you recommend?
Absolutely, yeah. So the grays are more like in the cool tones. If we're going towards the warm tones, the earthy ones, then we're looking at like Balboa Mist from Benjamin Moore. We're looking at City Loft from Sherwin-Williams. I've done there's a color from Sherwin-Williams called Agreeable Gray, and it is quite agreeable in terms of like covering in 2 coats, brightening up the space. And the earthy tones are really good because the other thing I forgot to mention earlier, that third element with neutralizing is you want to find a color that matches the existing finishes in the room. So the kitchen cabinets, any bathroom vanities, the flooring, the staircase staining, like just there's already going to be finishes in the room that now you're going to paint the walls that have to match what's in the room.
Oh my God. I'm like listening to you. I'm like, there's nothing that I find more distasteful is you walk into one of these older people's homes, okay? And when I say older people, I'm talking carpet, I'm talking wood finish, wood floors, wood cabinets in the kitchen. I'm not even saying like mid-century modern, but like just older, very like traditional mold, everything. And someone has come in and put gray on the walls. I could just jump out of my window. It doesn't work. Like they're trying, and I've said this to clients who have an older home and they're like, they hear people, they're like, okay, we're going to stage, right? And I go, no. And they're like, why aren't we going to stage? And I'm like, because you can't put a chicken on a highway. It doesn't work. Okay. Like literally, the stagers have furniture for this, you know, I don't want to say what's trendy, but what's in now, right? Like, and so you can't ask someone to put. I mean, I do have a stager that does some really cool stuff, but it's very hard to to like square peg round hole. And so to put gray on the, as soon as I see that, I'm like, they're trying to be something they're not, right? So you're putting gray on the wall, like you're cooling down a very warm palette, which doesn't work. And then you're sticking chrome furniture of staging in there. Like it's just so bad. Be who you are. Use the experts that you know. I mean, and this is now like I wanted to ask you next. Other than I just now pointed out the things that I think people do wrong, or that, and I'm not crapping on realtors that do this, but I think that being the expert in your field, right? Like Michael, when someone comes and be like, I want to do this, and you go, listen, I'll do whatever you want. I work for you. Having said that, I am the expert and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to save you from yourself. And I'm going to tell you, you should not do that.
Yeah.
And if I lose a job because of that, I lose a job because of it, because I can't lie. I can't say to you, yeah, 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 that's going to look great. It's not going to look great. So what have you seen that, whether you've asked someone or you've seen it in someone's house, or you would say, like, what's that number one thing that you would tell people, oh my God, please don't do?
I could go a lot of ways with this.
Have at it.
Okay. Okay, I would say like if we're going big to small here, the biggest one would be like don't overspend on things you're never going to see an ROI on in the time you're trying to see an ROI on. So, for example, like if the house is dated and you're like, "Oh, let's renovate the kitchen," but it's going to be, I mean, we know how much kitchen renos are. They're multiple five figures. So, it's like, okay, rather than spending minimum 25 to 50 grand on this kitchen, why don't you spend 5 to 7 painting the cabinets? Because you're not going to see, like, if the market's down, you're not going to see an ROI on removing the popcorn ceilings or renovating the whole house. Like, that's, something that's more of a longer term ROI.
I would also say, and it's a great point, thank you for mentioning it. I also tell clients never renovate to sell. Like unless you're a flipper, okay? Like I'm not saying like people who are renovated, whatever, they're buying a property for that reason. But people are like, oh my bathroom's really old, like on the main floor. I have an old powder room. Okay. But if the rest of your house is also old, or even if you did it, is someone you're renovating for the unknown. Someone might come in and go, I hate this. We had the most beautiful house in Lawrence Park. I thought it was they had a designer come in and they did this bathroom, made the coolest wallpaper. I thought it was so great. People were like, ugh. Half the people were like, I can't, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
go on. Sorry. Yes.
For sure. Yeah, I was also going to say do take do pay credence to the professional advice that your realtor and your stager and their trusted strategic partners give you. You don't have to do everything they recommend, but we've been doing this for a long time. We know what works, we know what doesn't work. One example I can give is we did this job, I think 2 or 3 summers ago. It was at Jane in the 400, and the homeowner hired us directly to paint, I think 3 bedrooms, a hallway, the kitchen, and the dining room. And it looked awesome when we were done. And like it obviously wasn't a cheap job because it was most of the house. It was about 4 or 5 grand. But then the outside of the house, like when you walked up to it, it was in a beautiful neighborhood, older home, mid-century, showed really
Yes.
well. Like she took care of it. But when you walked up, like the posts, the front door, the door frame, the windows, like, and when you walked around, like the paint finishes outside were very visibly in need of attention. And the real estate agent was like, "Oh, I will cover the cost of the outside painting. How much will it be to do this?" And I said, "Well, there's like less work out here compared to the inside, but there's still work here. So it's probably going to be about two to $2,500 to do this exterior painting." And the house they were gonna list for 1.1 million. So it's like, and then she said, "Oh, that's too much. Can't do it. Sorry." And I was like, "Okay, but you're listing a 1.1 million dollar house in Toronto. You just got the inside painted and staged. It looks awesome, and you're leaving the exterior finishes like peeling and failing and looking shabby. Like that doesn't really make sense to me. That kind of goes against the ethos of making a good first impression." So I think, just to wrap that all in a beautiful bow is not to be penny wise and pound foolish. Like if it makes sense to do something that's gonna reduce buyer objections, then and it's not gonna be like breaking the bank or an arm and a leg, then it's probably worth doing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I can't speak to the realtor. I mean, I guess my advice to them, first off, would be like, never promise anything you're not willing to follow through with. So, first of all, that would be my first advice. Second of all is, I mean, you never know. They could be someone who's charging them 1% and just realize, you know what I mean? Like,
That's
who
true.
knows?
There's probably more to it than I.
On the other, yeah, there may be more on. But having said that, I agree with you. I mean, for example, my approach is I actually cover, I cover the staging and I cover the cleaning and I cover all of this stuff out of my own pocket. I don't touch painting, but this is why I have you on, because I think that even though it is a large price tag and I would be working for free if I did cover it, any agent that says they cover it, my only gut feeling is that they're either charging more than the standard 2.5%, or they're doing a very cheap job at it. That's all I'm going to say. But I would tell you that there's two things that I will tell sellers that I see the ROI back on, like a 1 to 1, if not more. And again, no one's done the research, so I can't say for sure, but is painting and upgrade your lighting. Because if you walk into a house that has boob lighting, which I call them, but those horrible lights, okay? Or you have those ornate, and again, by the way, I don't mean to go into these, estate sales kind of places where you still have original carpet and wallpaper, and then you're like, oh, yeah, let's paint, leave the carpet, and put in modern light. That doesn't work either. Like, again, I think it all, like you said, it all has to work together. But again, if you have a house that's relatively newish in the last 20 years, 30 years, even 50 years, and you've got hardwood floors and you're doing a nice paint job and you've got outdated lighting, it can make a huge difference, especially I would tell you in condos, especially in condos, because the condos that you walk into that feel like they're builder grade and everything is cheap, and the ones that you walk in and you can tell that either they invested more money into or they paid the upgrades originally. You can tell, and they sell for more. They do. So, I mean, I think that it's very good advice.
Yeah, I think to encapsulate everything we just touched on the last few minutes, it's cosmetic repairs. Just making sound investments and sound, thoughtful, uh, cut like painting, flooring, lighting fixtures, doorknobs, faucets, like anything that's
Ah,
cost
doorknobs
effective.
also. Yes, absolutely. Such a good point. Before I let you go, there's that big, and I wonder what your approach is. Sorry, your opinion, your expert opinion is about paint brands. I went to pitch on a listing the other day, which we won. We were very excited
Cool.
about it. We had a whole conversation about the property and what needed to be done, and one of the things was that it needed to be painted. It was a really great house, but they painted it in dark colors, and I was like, we need to find lighter. we need to lighten the walls. And the wife looked at me and she's like, oh, okay, great. Like, do your painters use Benjamin Moore? Like, I really, and so there's this idea that like Benjamin Moore is the Mercedes of painting. And so listen, sometimes I would say, if you're painting to sell, again, I don't know prices. Is Benjamin Moore like the be and end all? Is it the pinnacle of paint? Or can you take the color match of the color you want out of Benjamin Moore, walk into a Home Depot or Canadian Tire and say, I need you to color match this on a cheap or paint?
That is a really great question, and I get this all the time, whether it's real estate painting projects or even just my own one-to-one clients with commercial or residential repaints. So Benjamin Moore has done a very successful job at marketing and positioning themselves as like the Cadillac of paints, the premium product. Like that's great.
Right? You're doing it wrong if you don't use Benjamin Moore, right? Like it just, you are a cheapskate.
Yeah, and it's the same way that Home Depot's marketed Behr paint as paint and primer in one, when all paint really has primer in it. That's a whole nother side
Oh,
tangent.
wow. Okay, we'll have to do another episode on that. Yeah.
So, what I will say is, and this, a lot of people don't know this, and I didn't know this till I started painting, but Benjamin Moore, all their stores are franchised. So, whereas Sherwin-Williams and Dulux, who are the their main competitors, like those are the big three in the market, if you will, are Sherwin, Dulux, and Benjamin Moore, and like big three in terms of like what consumers know. Um, so Benjamin Moore, their paint is stellar. Like I have nothing bad to say about their paint. I use it all the time. I like it. It's great. It covers well. All the features you'd want out of it, you get. You get what you pay for real. Um, but because they're franchised, they when you go to a store, like even myself as a painter or a contractor or a tradesperson, they only give you so much of a discount. Like it's only 10 to 15% unless you're buying in massive volume from like one franchise Benjamin Moore store. Whereas Sherwin and Dulux, because they're corporate, I get the same pricing. Like my Sherwin account, I get pricing if I went to paint in Ottawa the same that I get here in Toronto. So I can get, just as an example, like the top three, uh, Benjamin Moore Aura, Dulux Diamond, and Sherwin Emerald. All three of those I would use interchangeably. They're all super awesome, amazing paints. But if I'm trying to pass on savings to a homeowner, then I'm gonna coach them towards like Sherwin Emerald or Dulux Diamond, because in terms of the quality and the finish and the coverage, you're still getting that high quality Cadillac level of like Benjamin Moore Aura, but you're not paying Aura pricing.
Oh, that's really good to know. And I think like these are the things that people don't realize because a lot of the time it's just a matter of what the marketing is. And by the way, like there are just more Benjamin Moore stores than there are. I've seen maybe there's more Sherwin Williams or Dulux in like suburban areas or other cities, but I have not seen as many as the Benjamin Moore, for example. Final question. Sorry, I forgot to touch on this, but I think it's really important also is finishes. So there are finishes that, if you're painting for to love, that is easier to wash and you have children, what do you choose? Lightning round.
Low sheen eggshell.
All right. And if you're painting to sell and you want something that's going to brighten, but you don't want it to like shine, right? What would you choose? What's the best one?
I would also, oh, well, I would say either matte or low sheen eggshell. Low sheen eggshell has a bit of a sheen to it. It's not too shiny, but it's not too dull. You can still wash it a bit.
Okay. Okay. Well, that was incredibly useful. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And I think this is like one of those underrated topics that people just don't, everyone talks about staging and they talk about numbers, but at the end of the day, it all comes in the preparation of it. And painting is just such a big part of it that, I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you. And again, as I said, we will have all of Michael's contact information for the company as well. If you're thinking about painting to get a quote this year, it will be in the show notes. So thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Rachel. It's great to be here. And yeah, your clients can reach out to me. We do Richmond Hill to Peterborough, big territory. So I'm at your
Yeah,
service.
big territory. Thank you. Amazing.